Currently the art director at the Arbor Day Foundation here in Lincoln. He has over 28 years of experience in marketing and design and advertising. And in 2021, his design was selected as the new Lincoln flag, which I believe he'll be speaking on today. So if you could give me a hand in welcoming him today.
Thanks. Appreciate it. All right, thank you everybody. It's great to be here. I haven't been on this floor in 20-something years, so getting in the elevator was fun too, and seeing all the new stuff. I just don't come around anymore like I used to. So if I do come around, sometimes I go to the art department and talk to Bruce and Suzanne, and of course, everybody else that works there. So today I wanted to talk to you about using personal storytelling to create a successful brand. This is a very hoity title for what I'm about to talk about. But this really is the story of me and how my story sort of Venn diagram came together with the story that needed to be told about Lincoln through a design contest. But before I get too far, I want to show you a picture of me at Union College back when I was 25 and looked 45. That's a joke at my house. I've always looked like I was a middle-aged man, even when I was a young guy. So, matter of fact, people thought I was a professor at times, or not a professor, but a teacher in academy once. Are you the new Bible teacher? I was like, nope. I'm 17 years old. I just look old. So the good news is all my friends are looking way older than me now, and I stayed looking 45. So, one other thing to note is many of you still call me Eddie. And most people call me Ed at work and other places. But I love when I come to Union that people call me Eddie because it reminds me of this time frame when I was here. So keep calling me Eddie. I like it. So who was Eddie and who is this wild man? I grew up on the West Coast. Our family are immigrants. We are from El Salvador and refugees. And if you don't know where El Salvador is, it is south of Guatemala. He knows. And south of Mexico, north of Honduras, and we mostly spoke Spanish growing up, and being in the Midwest was just a whole new world to me. Like I couldn't understand how cold it was all the time, I couldn't understand how flat it was, and all those things sound like negative things, and over the course of my life, some of those things have become somewhat endearing, not the cold maybe. But when I was at Union College, I had started the process of developing who I am. Who am I as a person? As an immigrant, as a refugee, you're constantly in flux. You don't know if you're speaking Spanish or English. You're trying to get along with people. You're constantly doing something called code switching. You're trying to figure out how to survive and not be bullied. And half of my strategy was to get people to laugh so they wouldn't beat me up. So far, so good. Except at my house where my sisters would beat me up. Apparently I couldn't smile without doing this face. If you've left Union, there are archives of the clock tower online, and you can look up your name if you're a narcissist like I am. And I did, and I found some pictures of me from several clock tower posts. And every time I would find a photo, I was making this face, and I have no idea why. So my story starts in Lincoln in a lot of ways. This is the place I've lived at the longest. Between kindergarten and my senior year at the now defunct Enterprise Academy, I had done 14 school moves, 3 states, 3 countries. Sometimes I would go back to a school I'd been to. And so my life was nothing but change till I got here, to Lincoln, Nebraska. And throughout the process in my journey, I met people that were really influential in my life. And some of them taught me how to think, and they taught me how to talk and how to learn and how to do art. And there was one professor in general that taught me discipline. And most of you think that discipline means punishment, right? That's how we use it commonly. Discipline to me, the root of that word is the same as disciple. The idea of like learning how to do something properly. And Karl-Heinz Schroeder, how many of you know and took classes from Karl-Heinz Schroeder? If you don't know who this is, he was a very smart, but strict and loved to debate German man, Karl-Heinz Schroeder. And he had a wonderful accent. He was almost the antithesis to Pastor Roski, who was also from Germany, but was very happy all the time and singing. So we had two wonderful German professors here that were amazing. Karl-Heinz Schroeder taught history, arts and ideas. He is a very intelligent man. He was here a very long time. And I had to take a individual study course with him because I couldn't fit a class into my graduation bulletin. And so I had to meet with him once a week, and he was so scary to me, honestly. Just like you guys, I would sit towards the back. Occasionally I would end up coming into class late, and I would have to sit behind someone. I won't name this person, but she always drew attention to our side of the class by asking really dumb questions. And that was my worst fear, because then Karl-Heinz's his eyes would flow to that side of the room. So I was scared of him. I respected him though. And the class I took was about European art history, which I love now. And he's like, you know what, Ed? Why don't you take a course or do your individual study course on the Bauhaus movement, this movement in Europe that changed all of design for the rest of time, really. And if you don't know the Bauhaus movement, and if you're a designer and you're in here, it's something you really need to look into. They helped shape all sorts of modern furniture and architecture and art and graphic design. And he was right, it was the perfect study, perfect topic to study. And I had to present to him for 20 minutes and supply a 30-page paper. And because I'm an artist, I waited till the 2 days before to start. Bruce is laughing because he probably knows some students that way. Oh, you do too. Okay, good. And so I decided, I got it all together, and I stood in front of the class, and he was sitting in the back where Dan Carlson is sitting. And I said, the very first words out of my mouth were, the Bauhaus movement started in Weimar, and I didn't finish the word Germany before he yelled, "It's Weimar!" He yelled at me because I said the word wrong in German. And I should have known that I should not have chosen a German topic with Karl-Heinz Schroeder. He's a German man. I totally forgot. I forgot that he was going to correct me. By the way, I had to say the word Weimar like 80 more times. So every time I would get up to that word, I'd be like, and so at Weimar. But it was an endearing moment for me. He gave me an A-, which was great considering how terrible I was at procrastinating. And in the years to follow, I really revered the man, and I trusted his instinct, and I appreciated the discipline that he taught me. And I had graduated, and I was really kind of bummed out. I had started my first design job, and I think I walked over to the Quick Shop. See if I can, no, it's that way. Quick Shop is that way. To the Quick Shop, and I walk in, and Karl-Heinz is there, and I haven't seen him for maybe 2 years, it feels like. And he's got 2 jugs of milk. And I'm like, what is he doing? And I read a sign by the milk that says, buy one, get one free, or something. And this man that I revered and I had put on a pedestal is trying to save money on milk. And something about that was very endearing to me, and very, it made him feel like an equal in some ways. And I walked up to him, and he asked me how I was doing, and I told him I was really bummed out. And he says to me, whenever you're feeling down, go do something nice for someone else. And that was something that stuck with me. So what I did yesterday, I was like, you know what? I asked AI to generate an image of an older German gentleman gathering milk in the future, and this is what I came up with. Because I don't have a picture of him with the jugs of milk. And if he was here, he'd probably yell at me again. But I loved him. I loved all the professors I had here. My story really, in a lot of ways, began here at Union College and in Lincoln. And so, many of you might be business majors. You might not be graphic designers, art directors like I am. What does storytelling have to do with you today? How do you use it effectively to make a difference or talk to people about what it is that you're selling. Because guess what? We're all selling something. Every day we are negotiating and trying to convince people to believe in us and believe in the work we're doing, whether we're adjusting a budget or coming up with a new development plan or fundraising for the school, or you have a B- and you want that A, and you're talking to Bruce because you waited 2 days before the project was due to start. You're always negotiating, and a lot of times storytelling comes into play. So one story that I am really infatuated with is the story of Up by Pixar. How many of you have seen this story? All right, I'll have to spoil it if you haven't. I'm sorry you haven't seen it. A few years ago, I met one of the writers on Pixar, and he came and spoke to us here in Lincoln, to a bunch of advertising and creative professionals, and he blew my mind because he talked about the effectiveness of storytelling. The idea that humans, we are addicted to this roller coaster ride of emotion when we watch stories. So I want you to think about all your favorite stories, and there's always an arc, right? There's a character, he finds some kind of trouble, sometimes he finds a mate or an arch nemesis. There's a third act where they battle it out, and then there's a conclusion, right? All stories have, the most addicting stories to us humans, parallel our lives. They have dips, they have highs, they have lows. And in the story Up, if you haven't seen it, and if you have, you might remember, Carl Fredricksen, the older gentleman, has fallen in love with a high school sweetheart. And this is a video montage with no words, just music. And you follow their life together as they get married, they get engaged, they get married. They start to formulate ideas of where they want to go. They want to go to Paradise Falls, this beautiful utopian oasis that they want to visit. In the process of that happening, Ellie, his wife, falls sick and she dies. And what does he do then? He still goes on and wants to fulfill this idea of going to Paradise Falls, right? This montage is only like 3 minutes long, and the emotional ride that you go on is up and down. And some of you don't have kids and families, you're like, I didn't feel anything when I watched it. But if you care about anyone, you might feel something there, right? I hope you're not a psychopath or a sociopath. So Matt, the guy that wrote that story and helped animate it, told us the story of this idea of push and pull, the idea that you build tension by talking about sad things or infuriating things, and that you can release that tension at its highest peak with humor. And then everyone goes, oh, good. I don't have to feel that way anymore. And Pixar is the master, and Disney, at this storytelling. What does that have to do with your business? What does that have to do with presenting an idea, right? Well, I can tell you I've incorporated some of these things when I've presented ideas before. I have to pitch concepts all the time as an art director. I have to convince people to come along for a ride with me. And sometimes it means talking about the serious things, like measurements like KPIs and ROI and all these other acronyms that mean something in business, right? But you can't get very much farther without letting them see you as a person. And that has been sort of my secret sauce. So Matt, the guy I was talking about, he says, storytelling aims to impact the audience's chemicals in the body. So it might sound trite, or if you're in business or a lot of serious industry, like, I don't think I want to incorporate storytelling. And I'm not trying to manipulate people's chemical reactions, but it is important to note that people do react to storytelling. They really do, and it's physical and emotional. This particular story I'm telling you today is about the flag of Lincoln, Nebraska. How many of you are from Lincoln? All 3 of you, 4 of you. All right. How many of you are new to Nebraska or Lincoln? Like, this is your first 2 years? Yeah, yeah. All right. So some of this will make sense and some of this won't, and I'll try to kind of walk you through my thoughts and how this story combined with my story. So, did Lincoln need a new flag? Probably not. Most cities don't need a flag. It's not that important, to be honest. But this is the old flag that was around since 1932, so over 100 years, well, almost 100 years, not over 90 years. And this flag I don't like to knock it because some graphic designer in 1931 spent a lot of time cutting out little emblems and symbols and pasting them and thinking about all that the city represented. So that's a rotary in the background. That is the state capitol. If you have never seen it, it's downtown. It's beautiful. That's corn, of course. And that's wheat right in the middle. I did not know that was wheat. I had no idea what that was. I thought it were French fries at first. But the person did an excellent job. It stood the test of time. So did we need a new flag? Not really. But something started in 2019. Kyle Wilson, a Union College graduate. Do any of you know Kyle? Some of you knew. Kyle and I are also serendipitously intertwined in this whole thing because he and I walked and graduated at Union College on the same day. Kyle is an amazing tech and business leader in Lincoln, and he did a presentation in 2019 at something called Ignite Lincoln. And he, for some reason, chose the subject of the city flag, and I don't know why. I've never actually asked him why he did that, but he didn't think much of it, so that's why I wrote meh. He was like, yeah, we should probably think about, changing some things up and using this as sort of a brand for the city, and maybe it needs a refresh. So Kyle and I actually worked at Nelnet together at some point too, so he and I, our paths have crossed several times. So in 2021, someone took what Kyle started, a Union grad, and they decided to do a contest for the new city flag. Like I said, who cares? However, they did have some rules for what the flag design needed to be like. These are principles. They're based on the Vexillological Association's 5 basic principles of flag design. If you don't know what vexillology means, it means the study of flag design. I didn't know that, and I still have a hard time saying it. But the idea was it needed to be simple, so like if you showed it to a little kid that was 5 years old, they could possibly draw it. That was one thing. It had to use meaningful symbols. It couldn't just be random things placed in PowerPoint. It couldn't have any words. It had to use 2 or 3 basic colors, so you couldn't have a completely full of color design. No lettering or seals, and it had to be different from other flags around. The idea of flags is kind of interesting, right? Because if you had never been in the US, say you were from another planet and you saw this, what would you think this means? I'm going to pick on you.
If I wasn't from...
Yeah, if you never knew what these stood for, what would you ask? What would be the questions you'd ask, like, what does this mean?
I'd probably ask, like why specifically red, white, and blue?
Yeah. Why are there stripes?
Why are there stars on the corner?
Yeah, I mean, is this like a candy cane store that sells stars, shaped cookies? I don't know. You can imply and infer any meaning to a symbol until someone explains it to you or you live it out, right? And that's what a brand is too. So each one of you has a personal brand. The United States has a brand. The city of Lincoln has a brand. Some people, when they see this symbol, they feel pride and joy, and they feel like it must be protected by all means. There are some people that see this symbol and don't feel that way. And why is that? The brand has let them down. The brand has bolstered other people, though, and they feel confident in where they live. I'm not trying to convince you either way. Just so you know, different symbols mean different things to different people, right? And how you treat people is your brand. That's what people will remember about you as well. So, if you didn't know, because you're from another planet, there were 13 original colonies, right? That's why there are 13 stripes. They're red and white. There are 50 states, so there are 50 stars. The colors of the flag are symbolic as well. The red symbolizes hardiness and valor. The white symbolizes purity and those ideals that we strive for. And the blue represents vigilance, perseverance, and justice. So there you go. It's a beautiful flag. So this contest came about, and I hate design contests with a passion because If your home, if a pipe breaks in your home, do you hold a plumbing contest? And you decide that you're going to call 17 plumbers, and the one that does the best job, that's the one you're going to give them the prize money to? No, right? That's how I felt about the design contest, to be honest. So I went on vacation. Emma knows, she used to help out at our house, and we went on vacation, and I went back to Oregon, a place that I used to live at as a child. And maybe something about being there and thinking about my life and the journey that it took, and waking up really early on a windy morning and being by the ocean, that really kind of cleared my mind. And I thought, fine, I think I will submit something. I have some thoughts and ideas. And so I went to work. And this is an actual picture of my notebook. And I wrote down, because a flag is a meaning, is a symbol. I wrote down everything that I felt living in Lincoln. Just the feeling of being here. What was it like coming here, or coming over Van Dorn, and the first time I saw the Capitol, or walking around campus and seeing the clock tower and rising out of the ground just like the Capitol does. I thought about all the friendships I have, and I thought about all the sunsets in this really flat place that I live in. And so you'll see some sketches that look like radiating lines. And if you're a graphic design student, I highly advise, don't get on the computer when you start an idea. Just sketch it out, even if you can't draw very well. And so I drew a lot of symbols and ideas and words, and I thought, what does this city mean to me? The idea of a symbol meaning something is also a German word. It's called Gestalt. And that was taught to me by Mr. McClellan, who used to be our art teacher here. So this is the design I came up with, if you haven't seen it already. And I will explain what the lines mean in a second, how my story is infused in here, and hopefully some other people's stories as well. So this is the old flag. This is the new flag. You will see there are some similarities. Do you see them? What are some of the things you might see? All right, circle. What else do you see? Yes, sir. Yep, the Capitol building. Yep. Anything else?
The radiating lines, even though we got 3 pictures.
Yep, there's still radiating lines that were coming out of the rotary spoke, right? Excellent, thank you. So I wanted to pay homage to this designer. I don't know this person. Like I said, I'm not one to critique and badmouth something before, because it was done a long time ago, before computers. I wanted to pay homage to that. So that was one thing I wanted to do. That was just for me, really, you know. One of the things about selling ideas and going to work is that I read this quote by Charlene Annabelle, who was talking about Matt Lumen's story idea, and she says, anyone can try to sell a product or service their company is offering. Still, it's a different story when people feel compelled to support your business or flag design if they're sold on an experience that they can relate to. So the idea was, this was a design contest, but I took it to be a branding contest. And I was going to tell a story. And that was the difference, I think, that was the thing that made the difference in the end. Some of the designs that were submitted, admittedly, were better designs probably. But there wasn't a whole lot of forethought put into it, a whole lot of meaning in the symbolism. And so I went to work sort of in that immigrant description that I had earlier, this survival mode that I go into, where I try to convince everyone to like me and come along for the ride. I leverage all that experience into selling this idea to people and going, hey, I got a story to tell about who I am and how I ended up here. And it's infused into the design of this flag. What you're seeing here is the flag after it was accepted at the Lincoln City Council. And at the time we were all wearing masks. Let's forget about that. And the people next to me, that's me, if you didn't recognize me, were people that were part of this committee that helped choose the design of the flag. This flag did go to popular vote on social media, but ultimately this committee chose the designs. And this committee is important for you to know, because different people represented different groups around the city and the state. She represents the Ponca tribe of Nebraska. It was important that she was there to me. He is a professor of art at the University of Nebraska. She represents the AMA Lincoln Federation, the Downtown Lincoln Federation, the City Council, the Mayor's Office, 2 historians that know Lincoln better than anyone I know, and his name's Ed also. He's a great guy. He's the cooler Ed. And he was exceptionally critical of all the designs and the meaning in the stories. And like I mentioned earlier, I went into full sell my ideas mode when I walked into this council room or this committee room, and I knew all of their backgrounds, and I wanted to address every single one of the things that meant a lot to them. So I came up with this idea that meant a lot to me, and I think might mean a lot to some of you if you really think about it. I titled it, excuse me, All Roads Lead to Lincoln. I know your family really well. Our parents are really good friends. Your family's from Guatemala.
Yeah.
We're from El Salvador. Somehow you and I are sitting in Lincoln, Nebraska right now.
Wow. Yeah.
Where are you from? Denver. You're sitting here. You're from Wichita too, Shirlitra. I know several of you. And somehow we all ended up here. All roads lead to Lincoln. And I stole that. That's a line from an old book that used to say all roads lead to Rome. I don't know if you know that. So all the roads that the Romans built led to Rome because it was efficient for their armies to march in and out, but also for, they were mercantile roads, trade roads, right? And so this idea of an easy flowing center point of their empire was important to them, right? For us, we're not an empirical city of any kind, but it is important that a lot of us come here and there are roads that are built for us to be here, and God wants us here for a reason, right? He's leading us towards something else. All these roads led to Lincoln for me. I'm going to read a little bit of this for you. It's kind of long. Hope you don't mind. Inspired by the Art Deco architecture and Native people's artwork displayed inside the Capitol building, this flag uses simple lines to convey Lincoln's past and its future by alluding to the interconnection of technology, agriculture, and commerce. Whether you're a lifelong Lincolnite, like some of you, or a recent refugee in our town, there is hope and optimism here. These values are visually represented by the radiating, you mentioned it, the lines, the concentric artwork symbolizing a beacon or safe harbor for those looking to better their lives. The colors are based on the Nebraska state flag, which is blue and yellow. The yellow was modified to look closer to gold, and the blue was shifted to a teal by adding a green hue as a tip of the hat to the verdant tapestry of Lincoln, which is home to a place I happen to work at now, the Arbor Day Foundation, and many city parks. I got an email from the CEO after I did this before I worked at Arbor Day Foundation. Hey, thanks for mentioning us. Fast forward 2 years later, I'm working 15 feet from him. So another conversion, right? So in order to sell the idea, I had to come up with mock-ups. These are not real things. These are things that are photoshopped together. And I think the thing that sold the flag, and I've talked to several of you already about this, was this water bottle right here. When people saw that water bottle, they were like, oh, I like it. I don't care about the flag. Can I get one of those? And I have yet to produce those. Those are probably really expensive to produce. Like I said, it was a mock-up, so I was like, eh. So what do the little symbols mean? What do all these little lines and stars? You caught some of them already when you were looking at the flag. And I mentioned this earlier, but one of my favorite things about being a Midwesterner now, most of my life, I am a Midwesterner, and I love the fact that we can see forever. Have you been to New York City lately? I love it. I love that there are sunsets and sunrises and we can just see forever. And I know Emma's a country girl, so this really speaks to her, but this is actually Holmes Lake, like not even a half mile from here. And this and other pictures I've seen and experiences I've had there influence this idea of like, how do you tell hope in a symbol? If I were to ask you, how do you tell hope in a symbol? You might say a heart, maybe a star, right? To me, it was a sunset or a sunrise, particularly a sunrise. Like every day we wake up and God gives us another day, it's a symbol of hope, right? You might have seen this. Some people are like, yeah, you just stole the idea from New Mexico. I used to live there. Whatever, Ed. But it's true. This is my favorite flag of all time. I paid homage to this too. I really like the soft end caps, and I liked how this sun was portrayed. So I wanted to borrow some of that to honor the native people of Nebraska, even though they are different native people, right? It still made sense to me because when you walk into the Capitol building, you're going to see a lot of native symbolism in the doors, on the walls. I wanted to pay homage to a very Eurocentric style too, which is Art Deco. Art Deco is the style in the 1920s when this building was built, our Capitol, that symbolized this idea of a utopian future. So there were a lot of things that would radiate out, lots of tall towers. They kind of took a lot of classic European building structural design and kind of modernized it, right? And our Capitol is a utopian beauty. And if you ever want to nerd out with me, I can tell you a lot about Bertram Goodhue, the architect of this, who built basically, in my opinion, a cathedral to the people of Nebraska. It's beautiful, very vertical. And that is the one thing that stands out in a very flat part of the world, is a building that just juts out, right? Just like our clock tower out here. I wanted to pay homage to the agricultural heritage too. You remember the corn and the wheat. I didn't want to put corn and wheat on there. I wanted to softly allude to it and keep the design real simple. So I drew a line that goes, if this is the earth and this is the sky, there's a line that goes deep into the ground like a well. And this comes from my history in advertising. I used to work on an account for people that dug wells that tapped into the aquifer of Nebraska, which is what the blue is, in the western part of the state. They are very proud to pull water from there and not have to pull water from the tributaries and rivers whenever they need it. That's something that's very unique to Nebraska. Someday I'm going to write a sci-fi story, and the world will come to Nebraska because this will be the only place where they can get water. Because there is water underground here in Nebraska, and it's a beautiful thing. So that is a line that implies a well. This was just for me. This is my story. I worked downtown at different marketing and advertising agencies for a long time. And I don't know how many of you who are not from Lincoln know this. Some of you from Lincoln might know this. This is the corner of 13th and O Street. And I didn't know this till I worked in a building like south of there. And I was standing by a window, as I do a lot, and just like thinking about stuff. And I go, wait, there's a brick inlay of a star in the middle of 13th and O Street. I had no idea. I'd seen the brick before. I didn't know there was a design. So there's a star there. You can't see it very well. It's actually not a star. It's a compass. It's a north, south, and all the other cardinal directions. And that was important to me, as it symbolized a little bit of my history working down there, but also this idea of like the center point of the city. And so what you see in the middle of our flag is that star right there. And what you also see is four corners. Do you see them here? It's a touchscreen, I didn't know it. So I wanted to pay a little bit of homage, and you're wondering what this means. Like what? As part of some of the art history courses I took here, I remember really being impressed by the idea in modern art that you can show two perspectives at once. Does that make sense to you? Picasso drew faces sometimes like this, where you can see them from profile and from straight on. And I thought that was ingenious to do in two-dimensional art. And there's something about that when I was working on the flag that I don't know, I wanted to kind of put into the design. So what you're seeing is a horizon. You're seeing that sunrise, that sunset that you saw, right? You're also seeing an aerial view of downtown Lincoln. So it's two perspectives in one. These are little Easter eggs, by the way. One thing that also was important to me, I designed a lot of these where the sun was here, the symbol was here, and I moved it around. Nothing felt right till it was right in the center. And long after I had designed it, I thought a lot about it. And I thought, And this was probably more meaning that I added instead of meaning that came out of it. I was like, you know what? Something that I love about Nebraska is this idea that it's in the middle. It's in the middle of everything. It's not in the middle of nowhere, it's in the middle of everything. There's a difference. Also, we have a unicameral at the state of Nebraska where people have to talk to each other from two sides of the aisle. They have to work in the same room and kind of go, all right, what do you got? What do we do? Something about that was important for me to note. And in my mind, symbolically, the composition of the flag sort of became a timeline. This is really abstract, I understand. Some of you are going to be like, what? But to me, there was a lot of allusion to the past in the flag. And there's a lot of hope in the future in the flag. But at the center of it all is us. We live in the present. And what we decide to do today, how we decide to treat each other, will make the difference into where we're going to move into. What we put into ourselves is what radiates out. And so that's why you could see it both ways. These roads lead towards the middle and they lead out. These sun rays, these lines lead you towards the center and they also lead out. Some of the things that were important to me was color. It said we only could use 3 colors, so I chose, it ended up being 4 if you count white. White's not a color in backgrounds. Graphic design argument. But it ended up 3, 4. And I pulled all these colors literally from walking around in the building, the state capitol, and taking pictures and realizing there were some reoccurring themes in color. And I wanted to pay homage to that, so I built a color scheme around that as well. And so how did this turn out? How did it come to life? Here's some of the pictures of the things that worked out. The things that I get made fun of by my friends is how much I had to do like interviews and do presentations and talk to the news and stuff when this was out. It was really, it could really fill your head if you're an egomaniac. And I prayed and I thought, God, please help me stay humble and like make sure that the message of the flag was something that I relayed. And these are some of the things that have been created. These I made myself because I like to golf. But people send me things. They're like, hey, there was a basketball team we just played against. They were wearing your flag and stuff. I'm like, oh, okay. If you go downtown, these banners are actually up and running, and they kept the design that I had in that mock-up that you saw. Sometimes friends will send me pictures of them wearing the shirts. And occasionally when I drive by, I see a flag and I take a picture of it just for my record. And then if you are a runner, if you run both marathons of the city, you will get one of these Capital City Challenge medals with the icon on it. So kind of cool, right? And it's really weird that it started in a sketchbook. But this is the weirdest one. I had some random person that lives in Chicago that was like, hey, saw you won the flag thing. Can I get a tattoo of it? I was like, sure, if you want to. He's like, I'm from Lincoln. I love the city. I love your design. And so that was endearing, yeah. And he sent me a picture. I watched enough LA Ink, Miami Ink to know these are not great lines. Not a great executed tattoo, but I appreciate his enthusiasm for the city. But ultimately, the story is really a story of love. I love the city. Every time I see my girls, I get. Okay, good. Pour your heart into everything you do. Whether it's you got to come up with a new budget for your business, whether you have to come up with a new development plan, whether you're working on a design like I do, and don't take yourself so seriously. People really endear themselves to you. Sorry. Make them feel awkward. That's another one. People will remember how you made them feel. They might not remember what you said. They might not remember how the growth chart looked. They might not remember the percentage points of whatever you're explaining to them, but they'll remember how you treated them. So, sorry I got emotional, but when I see this picture. So thank you. I'm Ed. Now, everybody look at me crying and just feel it out. At work, they always send me this emoji of Michael Jordan crying. Have you seen that meme? Because every time I talk about something important, I start getting welled up. And they're like, dude, do you have to cry every time? So, thank you so much. I'll take any questions, though. Any questions? Yes, sir.
Start to finish, from sketch to final, how long was that?
Honestly, the sketching and words and thinking, I've kind of guesstimated maybe 4 or 5 hours of just like thinking and sitting, coming back to it, you know, taking a break. The computer part, the designing, maybe 3 hours once I decided on the colors, and I tried several of those sketches. So maybe total, maybe 10, 12 hours of thinking and trying things out. Yeah. 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 Yes, sir.
I'm sure this doesn't have a implication for the city as a whole, but every time I see this, like, I kind of see the clock tower in there a little bit. Was that part of your...
Yeah, I've been asked that by union people before, and I mentioned it earlier. Being that the college is part of my story, I did in my brain subconsciously, I think, have this idea that like, and I think it's the same idea for the clock tower, right? So, bear with me here. The Capitol is a Gothic revivalist building. That's what the architect meant. Gothic architecture is very vertical because in Europe a long time ago, people wanted to be closer to God, is sort of the idea behind it. I don't think that that's too far off from what the clock tower symbolizes. This idea of like things vertically kind of coming together and then rising up towards heaven, right? Not in a sacrilegious way, but in a way that we're striving to get closer to God. I think that in my head, those two do connect. It wasn't something that I literally thought of because it was so much about the city, but I do have those thoughts about the clock tower as well, and I could see that fusion coming together. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
I know we were just talking about this before.
Yes, sir. I paid him to ask me a question, so.
But like since you've like lived like in a lot of different areas and a lot of places in your own life, did you ever think that Lincoln would be it, and that you were able to design such a beautiful flag for at least put in a lot of hard work for what you designed for? Like, did you ever think Lincoln was this is it? Like, was it on the plan?
No, it was not on the plan. Let me tell you a story. I was going to add it earlier, but when I lived in Portland, Oregon, our pastor, Pastor Lara, he was a Spanish or bilingual pastor. He lived, because Lincoln and Union is one of the Seventh-day Adventist hubs of the world. He had happened to live in Lincoln. This is 15 years before I ever knew I would be living here. And my parents we all went to his house for lunch one Sabbath afternoon, and he had a map of Nebraska. And I remember this clearly because we had just moved from Los Angeles to Oregon, and I was so bored. And I was just staring at this map, and I'm like, why do they only have one freeway? And then I was trying to picture like what it would be like here. And I was so naive. I thought it was like the Wild West. Yeah. Like people would, more like Texas probably, but anyway, I literally saw tumbleweeds, and I was like, I have no idea what it's like there. And I was like, why would anyone ever live there? It looks so boring. That's literally the thought I had. And that's how magnificent God is. You know, He takes something that you think is negative and that maybe won't be in your plans, and then He shows up and goes, you're going to meet your wife there and have a job, and you're going to be presenting to a bunch of people, and you're going to start your career there. So you never know where God is going to lead you, and I'm so grateful that I got here. So, yeah. Yes, sir.
I'm going to ask this, but I'm just going to start. You talked a lot about data and research. You talked a lot about story, but I also heard a lot about intuition. Okay, so can you tell us how this works for you, or how it works in your process? Because you're obviously doing a lot of research. You have a lot of data. You're presenting. Everything means something. Nothing's random. But at the same time, I sense that with all of that, things come up within you through that intuition, through that subconscious. How do all those things work together?
Yeah, that's a great. I need a couch that I can lay on. And, I think it's. I alluded to it. I think it's this nurture and nature thing. So my nature, honestly, is I'm actually a very shy person. My parents were like, "You were the quietest little, softest round ball of a human, and you would play by yourself all day." And as I got older, the catalyst in our lives was moving to America and being confused and lost. And the first kindergarten I went to in America was in Chinatown, downtown Los Angeles. And I was so confused. I was like, I thought we were going to America, because there were people that didn't look white American to me, like I saw on TV. They were like, everyone's Asian and black. I don't know, you know. So my life has been a series of like trying to maneuver, like surfing emotions and emotional intelligence, and constantly code switching and kind of figuring out and reading rooms and knowing when to lean into my personality or back off. And so I think there's just something about the nurture part that has informed this intuition that I have in reading rooms. And that is something that all of us have in some way or another, some maybe at a heightened level. And so for me, I didn't come here to say, hey, everyone, work on your intuition today and be really good with people and emotional intelligence. It was more about telling you my story and how it connected to the flag story. But I do conscientiously think about prompting my intuition, like I did with that committee that we met with. I knew that there was someone that represented Native American people of the city. I knew people that were historians and artists, and I could address each of them with that document that I put together. If you notice, I hit up every one of their categories. That it was not, in my opinion, manipulation. It was that I know over time doing this, when my job really is to sell ideas. That's what I do as an art director. I try to get you to understand that I want you to help me raise funds for the Arbor Day Foundation. Trees are important. This is an arboretum. I could try to figure out ways to craft my message towards individuals, and that comes from something that my upbringing, and also I have very empathetic parents who teach me how to kind of feel what you're feeling. So when I started crying, you guys were all like, ugh. So I had to break the tension with, yeah, now everyone stare at me. You know, I kind of felt the tension right away. Those are things that you just grow up with, or you kind of learn to understand over time. But, you know, my wife's like, you're kind of a salesman manipulator, are you? Is that what you're? I was like, no, I try to really custom each individual interaction to the people that I talk to. And I mean that. I really try to get to know people as individuals. Yeah. Yes?
Where do you find the line between symbolism and just making it look good? Because like some of those choices that you made for the flag, like a lot of them had meaning behind them, but at some point it's just, some of the things are just made, like the number of rays coming out, do they have a symbol, like a meaning to the number of them? Or like,
it can be taken too far for sure. Like,
right, yeah.
This ray symbolizes, you know, the Third Amendment of the Nebraska Constitution. You know, I could have done that. I didn't.
So where do you find that?
I think that's probably a little intuition too, knowing like they have to be general meanings. They have to be implied by me, inferred. But the flag will mean different things to different people. So one of my neighbors that lives across the street, I live in a cul-de-sac, and he hates it because he thinks politically he doesn't align with me. So he thinks that every symbol that I put into it is this like completely opposite of his views. I won't say what his views are. And I try to explain, no, that's not what I meant. But he has taken in, there's
his own meaning.
Meaning it. And we all do that. That's like when I was talking about the American flag. Some people just don't feel good about right now where they are. I hate saying that because I kind of lean the other way. I'm so grateful for this country. But so that is what a brand is. And so when I was trying to think of the symbols and the objects, I was trying to think of that word gestalt, what are graphic symbols and shapes that represent some of the meaning that I'm trying to infer, but not mandate that people feel, because I can't control what people feel when they see it. So I could add more meaning to it. Probably the one where I stretched it a bit is probably that timeline, where that's what it means to me, but if no one ever sees that, it's okay. Yeah.
Can you talk about the colors a little bit more?
Mhm.
Something that we had talked about
Yeah.
when we first met was
I'll go back to
the
it.
specific colors that you chose and how that did relate to the native tribes that are from this area.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you want to talk about your competition a little bit, but kind of some of that
Oh,
conversation
yeah.
and why it's important to understand the symbolism that people from this area
Mhm.
originally hold.
Yeah, I'll just shift a little because the colors are pretty directly from the capital, and I think that the Native American art implied some of that, but these are cherubim or angels here, and there's a lot of Mesopotamian art at the capital too, because there's a theory that the people in Iraq, Iran, Mesopotamia were the original agriculturalists of the world, right? So that's where that symbolism comes from. So I took those colors and applied them, and I was selective about which ones I wanted. Like, I did pull that orange there, but it's closer to what his question was. There were designs that were cool. Like, there was a design with an owl on it that was beautiful. And in my mind, the person didn't really describe the meaning of it. It was just like, wow, owls are wise. Go Lincoln, you know. What he didn't realize until I talked to the leader of the Ponca tribe is that a lot of native tribes from Nebraska see the owl as a symbol, an ominous symbol of death. So that already kind of checked off her vote for it in the committee. Some people had an axe for Abraham Lincoln because we're named after Lincoln. I think that's cool. It was beautiful. But it didn't go much farther than that, other than Lincoln chopped a tree down once. So, you know, he was a great. Did he? Or was it at Washington that, you know? But there was an axe because he was from Illinois and he chopped trees. So you can take your symbolism as far as you would like. I think they would have helped themselves out if they had done some of the research that you're talking about, and less in the colors and more in the shapes and symbols. So does that make sense? So those designs were better. I'll admit it. They were beautiful, but they just didn't infuse the meaning into it, and that's what mattered to the committee and the people that were making the decision. So, yeah. Any other question? Yes.
The designs weren't better; they were just different.
I have people come to me all the time and go, I didn't like your design. I like the owl, and I was like, it's all right. Maybe it's different and better. Yeah. It's okay.
We're very proud of you.
Well, thank you so much. Yeah. So when you see this flag, think of Union College, because this is where it all started. It's really the bottom line of what I was trying to tell you.
I think of Wendy Mejia every day.
Yeah, Wendy. She knows Wendy too. My sister and I are practically twins. Like, my daughters will use like Snapchat filters and put wigs on me, and it literally looks like Wendy, and it's like, and she's a lot cooler than I am. But anyway, it was nice talking to you all. If you don't have any other questions, and hopefully when you see the flag, you just don't think of me, think of Lincoln and think of Union College. So thank you.